Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara, and today I have with me Kevin Kraft, a musician, sound healer, and children's book author of with lots of M's. Kevin is the sounder and founder of Soundshala, or soundshala.com, a unique mindfulness curriculum combining music, breathwork, movement, and meditation to help achieve the mindful benefits of a sound yoga practice. This is evident in the soundscape of voice, gongs, crystal and Tibetan bowls, drums, and other instruments that help us relax and release deeply into balance. Welcome.
Thank you, Lara. I really appreciate you having me.
So I always like to start by having our guests just, expound a little bit on their background and their journey and how they came to be doing what they're doing today, which for you is, this platform and your sound healing. So tell us how you came into this.
Absolutely. Well, I am a 48-year-old young man living in the middle of Bend, Oregon. And what I'm doing with my life, doing sound healing, yoga, mindfulness, stillness, in so many different demographics blows my mind. If I look back of how I was as a child, no voice, no confidence, to see the journey one can go through, it's incredible. So I spend my days in the realms of sacred music and creating space for people to really feel supported to go within and journey within and explore within and understand the mind and understand how crazy our minds are. And that's just, it's a fascinating journey inside. And I find we spend so much of our energy externally focused in so many different directions. It's equally as fascinating to explore inward. So.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who might not be so familiar, or maybe those that even think, well, sound healing isn't that sort of like self-evident, like kind of obvious, like what it is, like what is it from your perspective, and or how do you use it and implement it?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yeah. Well, first off, yeah, I think all music is potentially sound healing. All sounds are potentially healing. But we hear through our whole body. We don't just hear through our ears, right? We hear through every cell. We hear energetically. Some of us hear through colors. And hearing is really, I think, a metaphor for listening. I think that's maybe better. And when we say listening, I further into awareness. So like it's just these levels of awareness that we most closely associate with hearing. But we can keep going down. What's the sound beyond the sound? What's the sound beyond the sound? What's the sound beyond the sound? We can keep going there. So when we I think that the secret sauce is when we have an intention with music that scientifically is proven to slow our brainwave state, we can access our subconscious. We can release of so many things, and we can open up to so many things. So we can have conversations about what is released or what is called in, but really we are finding our kind of our authentic, relaxed state energetically. And that's the best way. And I think sound, there's other ways to arrive there. Sound is not unique, but sound is really open to everyone, right? Most of us live in the world of sound and are open to it, especially when it's free of dogma or religion. or you must or you should. These are just sounds. So it's just energy interacting with energy.
Mm-hmm. Um, and so when we talk about the brainwave states, because I
Hmm.
think that is something that people probably are not that familiar with, unless they're a practitioner of this. Like I'm definitely one of those people. I'll go on YouTube depending on like what I want to achieve, and I'll try to find some of that music to get my brain into that state. So whether it's like delta for deep sleep or alpha for creation, can you go into those brainwaves or
Yeah.
states and like expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, and I love talking about this, especially if someone has never been to sound healing, because I think a lot of people relate to this concept that we're all going, going, going. We're doing, doing, doing. We go, 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 right? And we now understand that stress connects to disease, which leads to disease, right? I think a
Yeah.
lot of us are connecting these dots there, right? But I don't know if if society is really connecting dots with, wow, we can actually be aware of our brainwave state and actually slow it down. So meditation is, one of the best ways to slow down the brainwaves. But we have five main brainwave states. Right now, we're talking, we're listening, and engaging. We're predominantly in the beta wavelength state. And beta doesn't mean that's the only wavelength state. We're still giving off the other four brainwave states, typically measured from four parts of the brain. So it's an average, but we're in predominantly a beta wave. And if you look at a graph, it's fast, it's moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of us stay in that state far too much. And we go in that state all along, and then we crash at night, and then we go into delta. So we're going from beta to delta, and we're really not exploring the opportunities, the creativity, the sweetness of alpha and theta. And in our sound baths, it's gongs do a really amazing job. Within a couple of minutes, we can shift brainwave states into the predominantly, theta brainwave state. We're not all hooked up to sensors. This isn't a class, but we know that we're in theta.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things, and we can talk about that. But that's the theta state, is that place where our body thinks it's going to be asleep for 8 to 10 hours. So it naturally kickstarts all the things to restore and heal from a day of doing and being active. So I don't like to say we're tricking the body, but we're allowing the body to find that deep reset, that deep rest, sinking deep into the parasympathetic nervous system, and allowing all of the body to say, okay, now it's safe to turn on all of these mechanisms. So 30 minutes of a sound bath is like 2 to 3 hours of sleep at night. And please don't believe me. Go to a sound bath and see
Mm-hmm.
if that works for you. It doesn't work for everyone, but yeah, don't believe me on that. Try that. Um, and so it's this, and it's really the magic of the theta wavelength, theta state. It's where plant medicine journeys happen. It's where near death experiences happen, outer body experiences, just incredible creativity. So it's this place that is, I think we're just opening up to that. This is our sandbox, and we are becoming aware of it, perhaps for, the first time in a long time. So through sound.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so this is just for clarification for all of you out there listening. Like these things have been studied and known in the scientific realm and world, and even our government for many decades, actually. And so I think what's amazing is that we, I guess, lay people, I'll say, are now starting to research, understand, practice, and bring it to the public, like what you're doing. And so it's really demystifying and making it accessible and opening up, I think, this new realm of, self-empowerment and, self-awareness, self-treatment.
Hmm.
Because when we are able to consciously and with intention change our brain waves and our brain state, then again, I think it opens this door to a whole new world of potential of how we're able to, control our heart rate, control our breath. That means controlling our cortisol and our stress hormones, which
Mm-hmm.
means if we can bring them, down out of fight or flight, then we are improving our health without medication. So it's the implications, I think, are fantastic and vast and amazing. And it's just a
Yeah.
matter of, getting the message out there. And then again, like you said, like, don't take our word for it. Like, go try it because it is amazing. I love going to local sound bath experiences and sound healing experiences in Truckee and Lake Tahoe. I'm privileged enough to not only live there, but be surrounded by amazing practitioners.
I would imagine
So
your area has
yeah,
some amazing class.
yeah.
That's
So I
amazing.
would, definitely encourage anyone out there to start Googling practitioners around you and, start finding local classes and experiences that you can go to experience this on your own. And, or I'm sure I'm going to ask you about your website soon so we can talk about too what's available for people to try it in the comfort of their own home as well.
Absolutely. One thing, a lot of people, I think, perhaps are a little reluctant to try a sound bath. Perhaps they think it's a little too woo-woo or too cosmic. And it can be very woo-woo and it can be very cosmic, but it's
Mm-hmm.
a very individual experience. So if that cosmic woo-woo is happening inside then it's it's not so woo-woo. It's an individual experience. But this also works on the very non woo side. Like, if I ask almost anyone when we do large classes, I'll ask the group, like, how many people believe everything that they think? And almost unanimously, no one believes everything that they think, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
this concept of illusion or story is kind of the center of yoga, or one of the main pillars of yoga. And it brings that teaching to our crazy society, is like, what is true and what is real in the now. and
Mm-hmm.
and wow, it's really hard to know what is real because I can feel my brain spinning, or I can feel my world spinning. So we're things are getting, I think, so fast that we can actually feel this spin, and therefore hopefully now know that we really effectively, through sound waves and intention, can slow things down and really support us in meditation practices that so many people are terrified to try. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, especially too, because we're all really just vibration. Like, we're all sound, we're all frequency. Every single cell in our body is made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons, and those are just particles moving at different speeds and frequencies to create what we see as matter. But
Mm.
really, again, there's more space in an atom in one single atom than, so it's very interesting that we live in a physical world that's so filled with space and energy and frequency and movement that seems
Mm.
so solid to us so I think it's interesting, and I think that's why when you start attending these practices or implementing this in your weekly or daily life, it brings you closer back to who you are at your core, that who, like, your intuitive, your soul really knows and understands, sort of like who you were before we became this human being. If we're going, I guess this is where the direction that we're going.
Mhm.
And so there is almost like this feeling not only of peace and relaxation, but maybe like a feeling of like even like coming home. And that maybe that's also why that once we get into the habit and start recognizing, like, oh, okay, this is a natural state. I can release, I can relax, I can let go.
Mhm.
This, more of like a native state of being instead of the on of the beta all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. I love to show people, they have a ton of videos online. If you type in blood test before a gong bath and blood test after a gong bath, and before a gong bath, the blood cells are all really clumped up and stagnated. They're not flowing, and it looks like a horrific, like, train wreck, really. And then after the gong bath, they are free flowing. They have good shape. And it's just like, so it's an instant connection that these vibrations from the gongs and other instruments, vibrations onto themselves, are literally going through us and gently vibrating our cells, ridding it of any stuck energy. And then we take that more to the macro level. If we feel like we're in a funk or a bad mood or unhealthy or stressed out, right? I think of these things in terms of a wobble. And when you go to a sound bath, there are harmonics, there are intention, and there's space holding that allows a potential resonance to happen between your vibrating body and then the high vibrations of these instruments and the intention of the class. So it's like we're tuning forks. And and especially when we do this as community and among people holding the intention of I want to be balanced. Balance happens, you know. So
Yeah, and then also what I love specifically about what you're doing, and then, for most practitioners that are doing this in a community, it is creating that community. And so we're coming together, and even if you've never been to an experience before, when you show up, you're invited to have an intention, to create an intention. If you don't know or don't have one, that's okay. You're invited to just participate in the intention of the group, which is usually like whoever's leading the experience. And even that is you're saying yes to the universe. You're saying yes to open yourself up to the possibility of something new and something different. And so just those tiny little actions and steps and that tiny willingness can be the impetus of so much amazing change for yourself. It can be really powerful.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned at the beginning the concept of listening and that we don't just listen with our ears. So I want to talk about that a little more, because too, what I'm curious about is if you're not able to go to an experience, how is it the same if we like have, headphones on and we're experiencing a sound bath just through our ears? Can we talk about that difference?
Yes. I'm always a little wary when I say they say, because who are
Who's
they?
who's they? Yeah.
But it just works so well in English, like in English structure. But they say listening to a digital sound bath is 75% of the live experience. So who knows?
Okay. Okay.
The ways to really make it as close as possible is with good headphones, and I find with most people binaural beats added to a sound bath
Mhm.
do a good job of helping the brainwave state sink down into the lower frequencies. So Soundshala, we just started putting our digital sound baths. For years, people were saying, what if I can't come to a class? So we just released our first album. It's the Four Elements. So we have sound baths with themes and binaural beats and the frequencies of the four elements. So you can just type in Soundshala into Spotify. Some of those are available on the music page, and they're all available on the podcast page. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So and then how does this differ from, like just a regular yoga class? I mean, again, I feel like some people are like, well, isn't this kind of obvious? But I feel like it needs to be discussed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we may need another episode for. So I love this. I just recently heard this a few times now, and I think it's worth propagating. Sound healing is the new yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun.
Yeah.
So, well, a lot of people don't even really know what yoga is, right? And
Right.
in our age, a lot of people think it's maybe it's stretching, breathing, right? But really, according to Patanjali's system, it's just really 1/8 of what yoga is. And yoga meaning to yoke or to create a union. A union between two things can be a topic of debate and a very individual definition. But I like the definition of a small self with a lowercase s and a big self with a capital S. Whatever your definition of something greater beyond you, eternal, timeless energy, that connection to your authentic self, free of story, free of illusion, free of an imbalanced ego, free of posturing, free of words not matching actions, right? Free of doing harm. You could work in a lot of this, but essentially your authentic self, with your highest version of your authentic self, is yoga. So sound healing, I think, is one of the most effective ways for people to get in touch with who they really are and to question their minds. Our minds are so powerful. We need to take some of that power back,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, especially, I feel like more and more there is conversation about manifestation and, how can we do that? What are we bringing in, or, how are we intentionally bringing this onto ourselves or not? And so part of that is not from a, place of self-judgment, but more from a place of empowerment and saying, what am I doing or not doing that's creating the results I'm seeing in my life? And so that includes our health and our physical body and our mental health. And it's a big trickle down. It's all connected, which again, like, that's part of, there's 8 limbs of yoga, and asana, which is the stretching, the movement, the poses. That's just one piece of it, like you said. And so creating union, so bringing the mind back in alignment with the body, and or the body back into alignment with the mind, whichever way you want to look at it. And also too, which we haven't really specifically said yet, but one of the other benefits of being present in the room with all of these amazing instruments and vibrations is that the vibrations are going through your entire body. And so you might, come to a class with a tightness or a stiffness or a pain. And it's possible that by the time you leave, that could be dissipated because of not only the vibration of what you're receiving, but also your intention, and bringing that attention, your intention and attention, to that space. Can we talk about that too? Like, when someone shows up, maybe giving them, a little extra oomph about how to amplify their experience, maybe, um,
Mhm.
with intention.
Yes. So if you've ever meditated in a group setting, there's something that's a little difficult to explain, but there is definitely an amplification. There's an ease, there's a support, and it's different for everyone, but there is definitely an amplification that happens when you meditate together. Same thing in the sound bath. This is just a different form of meditation. And so in our classes, there's always a theme that ties the group together, but also allows for a very individual interpretation of that theme. Also, we always do a sankalpa practice. Sankalpa is one of my favorite words. San, or sam in Sanskrit, means same. Samastitihi, or it's in a lot of common yoga words, means same, or syncopated, which is the translation I like. And kalpa is subconscious. So the sankalpa, or the intention setting process, is really a syncopation with your subconscious. And I love saying that. I love listening to that. Is like, how do we syncopate what we want in life with our subconscious?
Mhm.
Because we know, science does say that the subconscious really is responsible for the vast majority of how we show up, and
Mhm.
so much of who we are was kind of predetermined by age 5 or 6 as well. So we are who we are. We work with what we've got. So
Mhm.
hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's not to say that it can't be changed. And this is, it just takes, again, conscious intention and deliberate intention. So, if there's something happening in your life that you're not stoked on, or even maybe if you find yourself in certain patterns that you're, again, not happy about, those can be changed. So
Mm.
it just a little consciousness, a little intention, self-reflection, and then asking yourself, what do you want? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What do you want the experience to be? And sort
Right.
of, working it backwards. So it's possible. All right. So next I want to ask you about your book. So
Mm.
how did you come to, and why this? Why starting here with this book?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it really, believe it or not, and I'm opening myself up to this, and I've been around people that seem to do this more and more. But it really came through as like just a kind of a download. I was
Mhm.
doing, I was writing kind of the inside of an album cover for a music program called Music Mandala 108, where we raise money for um, at need groups and their music programs. And I was a classroom in Sri Lanka was putting together this album, and I was going to just write about the class and the story. And then it just came out totally different. And then when I wrote it and I shared it with a friend said, "This is a story about you." And I was like, "What?" I wrote it without even consciously being aware of it, and it literally came down in 20 minutes. And it's about me, but it's also about the work I do. It's about a young deaf boy who suddenly starts hearing through his heart. And every
Mhm.
M in Ohm, that's OHMMMMMMM, if that's seven, um, represents a new word of awareness and self-discovery, be it a mandala or music or movement or the mystical or the mystery. Um, and so it's really this invitation for the kind of the child in all of us to just listen a little bit differently than we have. I think so much of our listening is put on the outside. We have a million ways to work out, and we have just a few ways, it seems, to really explore that inner landscape.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love how the universe works and sort of, like just sometimes we're being pushed slowly and steadily along a path by the universe, and other times it just plops us down
Mm,
into, and it's
yeah,
like, here, do this. This is your calling.
yeah.
Um, but and coming back to that whole concept of listening beyond your ears, uh, and getting in touch with our intuition. We're all intuitive beings, I believe. Like some of us have cultivated the skill deeper and, than others, but when we meet someone new or if we're in a situation, our body will tell us, is this good? Is this bad? When you get that feeling like, oh, maybe I should get out of here, or oh, like this person gives me the icky, like, ew, like they just don't feel good.
Yeah.
That's your body telling you that it
Mm,
is listening. So whether you feel that in your heart,
right.
maybe sometimes you'll feel it in your throat chakra. Like if you're in a situation and you can literally sometimes just feel your throat start to close up,
Mm,
that's again, so just getting into the habit too of starting to tune in when our body does react and listen to that.
mm,
And again, just respond. Like don't ignore it, don't push it away. I mean, maybe like if it's not, socially acceptable, appropriate, maybe don't like turn heel and literally run. I mean, if you need to, definitely do, but but then respond appropriately for the situation, but at the same time, like definitely respond. I
mm,
think we're taught, like you said, by a very early age, normally by the time we're 5, to ignore
mm,
what we're feeling, not respond in certain ways to certain situations. And so no wonder that so many of us are so confused and and like I say this with love, so screwed up.
mm,
And speaking of myself too, that it takes us a long time of seeking and, undoing so much to really like quote unquote come back to ourselves.
mm, mm,
Um, and to show up in life as our true self, or at least who we are trying to uncover that to be, I think. And so I think these tools can really help, like you said, both adults and children do that too.
Something that just came to me, and I haven't thought about this before. Like you said, the word screwed up, and right in our culture, screwed up means kind of like mentally messed up. All right, just like yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
or like
chaotic,
not right in some way.
right? Not right in some way. But if you really think of the word itself, like screwed up, or if you just say wound up, right? It's a much
Yeah,
gentler way. It's like I'm not crazy or like chaotic. It's just I'm really wound up, and how do I unwind, So,
yeah.
yeah.
No, that's also a perfect, illustration of how we judge ourselves and,
Mhm. Yeah.
and how, like, again, like, still working through releasing that self-judgment
Mhm.
and being gentle and loving with ourselves. And instead of, like you said perfectly, like, instead of saying screwed up, let's say wound up, or like, and let's look at that. Like, what does that really mean? What context is that in?
Mhm.
Um, you know, and I think that's a good illustration too of how, like, most of the things that we think are not even true. Like, we make up stuff about ourselves all day long.
Yeah. And something like 80% of our thoughts are negative repeat thoughts. We're dealing with
Mhm.
such a small number of fresh, positive, optimistic thoughts on a daily basis. Like we're washing with dirty water all the time, and we don't know what to do. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Awesome. So where would you send people? Your website is a wealth of information, soundshala.com. So where would you encourage people to start?
I would say go to soundshala.com, sign up for the newsletter. You'll hear about all of our great events, trainings, tours, retreats, collaborations. From there, you can find our podcast. It's a great way to listen to us on the go. Right now, most of our events are in the Pacific Northwest, but we travel to retreats and love collaborating. We're doing this we're kicking off this tour called Rock of Consciousness. It's me and this amazing local musician, Pete Kartsunis. I've taken what I do in the yoga world and combined it with live rock and roll music of a particular artist. And we've curated this. So the lyrics that are so powerful, like the lyrics of Pink Floyd or Grateful Dead or the Beatles or Pearl Jam or Led Zeppelin, like we land these lyrics after we mix up a bunch of energy, do breath work, and then receive. And then these lyrics hit, and it's just a really beautiful experience. So we're really excited to take this on the road. We're going to the big city of Portland and
Cool.
around. So we're growing out of, I can't really say small little bend anymore. It's growing like crazy, but yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember when Ben used to be small. Yeah, cool. That's amazing. And it sounds so deep and rich and mind blowing, really. So I guess, yeah, if you're able to be in the Portland area, definitely check it out.
Yes, yes. And I think, we're like, super excited to take this on the road afterwards because it's like, I don't know if, did you ever go to the Pink Floyd laser shows?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
See those anymore. So we're gonna bring that back, but with a little bit of, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of personal inward journey, and see what happens from it.
Cool. That's so cool. All right. And then we did talk about your book, but where do people find your book?
You can find it on Amazon. Also, Book Baby. If you type in Book Baby Bookstore, that's the publisher I use. Yeah, and if you are an educator, we have a 8-week program where we use the book and then each of the 7 M's to teach a different teaching point in the world of mindfulness and mysticism for kids. And one additional thing about this that I really want to start talking about more and more is this is an experience for a parent and a child to do together. When a child can have have a book, talk about some of these concepts, and then have a sound bath, and both be able to go, you had that experience, you what? And like it instantly creates this this dialogue between parent and child to talk about where children live in this world a lot more and
Mhm.
access to for parents. So I'm really excited about what's going to come from that.
Oh, that is really cool. I love that. Cool. So definitely check it out. Start to, again, open these lines of dialogue. I definitely think it can help our kids feel more connected, supported, and understood in such a crazy world that we live in these days. So much distraction and technology, and so bringing, I think, the technology in a positive, way, um, can be really helpful, powerful, and just paving the way, giving that good foundation for life.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anything else before we finish up? Anything burning
Oh,
to come through?
uh, anything else? Well, if you are around Bend this summer, we have been planning some incredible sound healing events out in nature. We've got sound baths in caves, in ancient juniper forests, in these beautiful, just grassy areas outside with the sound of birds and wind chimes and gongs and intention and the land. So the best place to find out about that is that's this called the Summer Series. You can find that at soundshala.com.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, not only for your presence today and your wisdom today, but for all the work that you're doing. I have a feeling it's going to have vast ripple effects. And so I really appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing. And I'm excited to, watch what comes next. So thank you.
Thank you for all your support. Really appreciate it.